It's really fun, like getting to study your kids and then call them out and say, hey, that is something you're uniquely good at. The way it changes them, it is so cool to see them go from like this bored aimlessness to suddenly they have a purpose. Like what I do matters to what's going on in this world.
Welcome to Blueprints, a podcast helping parents thrive in today's demanding world. Join Greg and Cody as they explore God's big plan for families and the big job of raising kids.
Well, welcome to Blueprints. We are on episode 10. We're going to be talking about the need for kids to have something big to believe in today. And I'm Cody.
And I'm Greg.
And that's Greg. And I wanted to kind of kick things off. You know, both of us spent a significant amount of time in vocational ministry as a pastor.
Yeah.
We're both committed to doing the work that we're doing. We also have other callings and stuff like that.
Right.
I think it could be interesting for us to share a little bit about kind of what finding our significant purpose early on did to us.
Right.
And to change that as we kind of get into the question and the rest of the podcast. So, Greg, why don't you start?
Yeah. I grew up in the church. When I was 11, I got saved, and then I was in like the youth group leadership all through middle school and high school in our youth group. And there was this really specific moment for me when I was 18 or 19, and the Holy Spirit just really convicted me. And there was this conversation I was having with a friend, and I could not recite to you the story of the prodigal son. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of poking fun at me, and it irritated me so much. Mm-hmm. And I went home with this deep conviction, one from that, but also from the Holy Spirit. It's like, hey, all these years you've said you've loved me. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe I did. But the conviction came with the Spirit saying, but do you really know me? Mm-hmm. And I went home that night and I picked up my Bible and I was like, I need to know who this Jesus guy is. And from that moment on, I haven't put my Bible down. I just grew more and more in knowledge and faith, but also my love for Jesus and just who he is and what he's done. And then later on, as I continued in my journey, God just kept unfolding gifts, passions, skills that I'd never seen before. And so walking through this and being developed and being discipled by other pastors and mentors kind of led me to planting a church, being a youth pastor, going and serving as a lead pastor at another church. And so, yeah, it's just really the continuing shaping of the Spirit that has drawn me to this kind of calling and just love God more and more. Cody, what about you?
Yeah, you know, I had a really, I think, deep sense of calling at a young age. I remember I went on a trip to India, and it was my first like exposure to, I think, the overt nature of suffering and poverty. You know, I grew up in a very wealthy suburb of Phoenix called Scottsdale. You know, our family was, you know, middle class, but grew up around things that I think there's a veneer of a lack of suffering.
Okay. And
so, not that there wasn't there, but you just don't see it. So I think it was there, and I really felt strangely drawn to suffering. And I think for me, where I found my purpose, and it really changed my life because I think it put me through a lens of like, regardless of what I'm doing, whether it's being a pastor, whether it's being a writer, you know, my kind of core artistic discipline is writing and music, whether it's any of those things, it's how do I help people in the midst of their grief find the beauty of it all and kind of see through kind of to God's goodness on the other side of it.
Wow.
And I remember early on, I think it directed me. And I think that to me is what, when you kind of find that purpose in life, like, it kind of helps almost like as a good editor would do, is it kind of strips away the things that don't belong in there. And so I could focus. I'm like, I'm writing not because I just enjoy it. I do enjoy it, but I'm writing because there's something meaningful behind it.
Right.
I'm pastoring because there's something meaningful behind it. I'm doing all these other things because there's something meaningful behind it. And that actually is informed even the way I am as a father.
We see ourselves become, like we've talked about in episodes past, more alive in God in these, because there's nothing that gets me more excited than seeing people grow in their relationship with Jesus.
I wanted to talk about that because I think we're going to, you know, hear this question and talk about kind of what effect that has on our kids and how we do that. And I think it's something that we can all relate to and hopefully we've experienced. So with that said, and with some of that background, I want to turn to a friend of ours and question that she has that I think we can all relate to.
My name is Tiffany, and I'm the youth pastor of a church in downtown Portland. I personally have 2 daughters. It's been really important to me that the kids I serve know the purpose that they have, but it's honestly such a struggle. They have so many things thrown at them and have such a lack of direction. It seems aimless, and their lack of purpose is really pervasive sometimes and really generally hard to come up against. How do we give our kids the purpose that they need to thrive in this world?
Tiffany, thanks for sending that question in. I really enjoy this question because it's something, as a dad, I've looked at my kid, and I want to instill purpose and meaning in him, even at a young age, to show him that he matters in the story of God. Cody, why don't you tell us what this big picture of this episode is?
Yeah, Tiffany, thanks for your question. And Greg, as a dad, I've thought about it too. And I think I keep coming back to just this reality that kids need to know their purpose to truly thrive. Mm-hmm. I think the difference between an aimless kid and a purpose-driven kid is like night and day. And it can be the same kid. Right. Just the change that it has on them. So a kid needs to know their purpose to truly thrive. We find that inherent in the Bible, that if we're going to look at the biblical perspective, that we see this very much so in the way God designed us and the way God treats his people. And so...
Right, and we see it all throughout.
Let's talk about some of that.
Yeah, we start to see it even with Adam and Eve. He gave them meaning and purpose. Hey, take care of these. Take care of this garden. Tend to the animal, all that stuff. And then he calls Abraham. He does all this stuff with Noah. And it's all through Old Testament leading into the New Testament when he calls the disciples. We have this big picture view that we have meaning and purpose, and God really wants us to discover it. In his eyes, yeah.
I remember when I was first starting to read the Bible and looking at it, I always thought it was weird that God had Adam name the animals.
Right.
I'm like, God made the animals. Why couldn't he have given them a name? And
what would you have named a bear?
Snuggly Buggly.
That's probably why he didn't put you in the garden.
I'm glad I wasn't in charge, because contrary to popular belief, you should not snuggle buggle a bear.
That would be a misleading name.
They do seem fluffy, but they are not snuggly. And I think that is in some ways God kind of tipping his hand to the way he designed people.
Yeah.
Like, sure, God could have named all of the animals too, but he's bringing us into participating in the purpose. He's giving us a purpose. Like, I think God knew that for Adam to thrive in this new world and truly enjoy and see the goodness of everything in there, Adam needed a job. He needed a reason to be there. And so, you're right. You see it throughout the Bible, you see it in everything. So God has given us all a big purpose.
Yeah, and my son got baptized 3 years ago. And there was this moment last year when we were at our house, and I was like, hey, man, you know Jesus, you love Jesus, you know your Bible. I think it might be time for you to start thinking about how can you serve in the church. And he was like, okay, let me think about that. And it was just moments later, he came back. He's like, you know what, Dad? I think I could help in preschool. I was like, dude, I think you'd be really good at that. Yeah. And because I want him to see that he could have a kingdom impact now. He doesn't have to wait until he's an adult, but he could have that kingdom impact on somebody's life right now.
No, that's great. It's funny. My 6-year-old, she will always talk about, because our older two got baptized, and they'll see other people getting baptized in the church, and she'll be like, I really want to get baptized. That's how she says it, baptized. And
I feel like that should be a Christian rapper.
Her reasoning for it, though, and the reason why I have not let her get baptized yet, is because she's like, I can hold my breath underwater, Dad.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Anyway, so that's a great example of, like, God has given us a big purpose. We see it in our kids.
And it's cool because we see how kids are wired and gifted differently so that they can be free to serve in so many different areas. This really reminds me of 1 Corinthians chapter 12, starting in verse 12, when Paul is talking to the church about how they are one body but with many members. And it says, for just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. And really, we are all gifted in so many different ways, and our kids have useful gifts that they can use for the kingdom of God right now and help and serve in the church. And so our purpose as parents is to show them and help them understand their purpose.
Mm-hmm. That brings us to kind of how or why does this matter to our kids?
Right.
Like we see the biblical perspective that, God has given us all a big purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to Tiffany's question about kind of how do we instill this in them, I think we need to even understand why is it important to instill it in them.
Right.
I think just like we need a why, just like God knows that his people needed a why, our kids need a why to really thrive. They need to know why what they're doing matters.
Yes.
And I think too often our kids can feel kind of sidelined from this, where it's like what matters is what you do in adulthood.
Right. Yeah.
And oftentimes they kind of feel floundering in this.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's right. And I don't think that's fair. And I think we as parents get to be a big part of that.
Yeah. When I was leading a junior high ministry, I really wanted the kids in that ministry to understand that they had a bigger purpose than just coming to junior high group on a Sunday morning. And so I was trying to rack my brain about how can you get kids that can't drive themselves to impact somebody else regularly. Mm-hmm. And so I partnered with a retirement home near the church, and I got a list of names where people don't have family members. Nobody's reaching out to them. And so they gave me this list of names, and once a month, the junior hires would write letters to these residents, and I would take them to the residents once a month, and they said like they would just beam when they got these letters from the junior hires. And it would be cool because then we would go serve during a holiday and actually meet the people that they were writing to. And just the amount of joy and meaning they got from that gave them such purpose and meaning. And it was a really cool way for them to have kingdom impact now as 11, 12, and 13-year-olds, not waiting till adulthood.
Yeah. One of the big joys that I've discovered as a dad is becoming students of my kids.
Oh, interesting.
As in, like, I study them. Like, I pay attention to them and figure out what is it that I think is unique about them and how do I call that out on them. Some of that is from, like, I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, kind of at the beginning of the show, I think the reason why I was able to find this purpose in life of using writing, using art, using whatever vocation I am to help people in grief and in kind of that sadness come through it and beauty was because I was encouraged by that, because my parents called it out in me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
They gave me opportunities to do it as a kid. They recognized that these things are unique to me, and they gave me opportunity to kind of explore those things and do that. And like I think one of the big joys that I have as a parent is getting to do that with my kids. Like my oldest son is super into music and really connects through music. All of my kids enjoy music, but he's really like kind of taken off with it.
Yeah.
And especially the bass, like he's like really into slap bass, ironically. And
okay.
I'm like, so you've chosen the least helpful form of one of the least popular instruments. Nobody actually enjoys bass players. I was a bass player, and so I can hate on bass players, but he's chosen that, but that's his path. And he's like, Dad, I think that's what I'm going to do for a living. I'm like, I think you're going to be living with us the rest of your life.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. But getting to do that with him, my second oldest loves running. Like he found that at a young age, and getting to explore that with him.
Your kids love things people hate.
Yeah, like he loves to run. My third, loves piecing things together and building things. And so he's like a crafter, a puzzle maker, all that stuff. My daughter loves being with people and bringing them joy. She loves to do that stuff. And so it's really fun, like getting to study your kids and then call them out and say, hey, that is something you're uniquely good at.
Right.
And the way it changes them and transforms the way they understand the rest of their life. Yeah. It is so cool to see them go from like this bored aimlessness to suddenly they have a purpose. Like what I do matters to what's going on in this world.
It's cool because when I look at my son, he's got a very soft heart. He's an only child, but he is very much an extrovert. He loves people, loves being around people. He's really empathetic towards people. And we try to call that out in him. Like, hey man, that was really awesome when that kid got hurt, you went over and checked on him. We were really proud of that moment. And yeah, continuing to pour into the gifts that he has. And one of the interesting things that I've noticed about my son in the studying manner is that even as an infant, he would grab toys and study how they work rather than just simply play with them. He's always kept that curiosity about him where like even now, like he loves Legos because he gets to construct something. And when we first bought him Legos, it's like, oh, this could be a really fun thing to do with my kid. And he straight up looks at me as a 3-year-old. He goes, no, Daddy, I got this. I'm like, okay. And like he'll get something like that and go lock himself in his room and he will not stop until it's done.
Yeah.
He loves to watch that completion of things and figure out how things work. But yeah, it's neat to draw these things out of our kids that these are all God wirings. This is how God made them. And so it's really, you're kind of prophesying it out of them like, hey, this is how we see God made you.
Yeah. Well, and I think at a broader level, kids don't need less. I think sometimes we feel like our job with our kids and with just children in general is to kind of remove obstacles, remove things like let them be kids, let them play, which I'm all about letting them be kids, letting them play. But at the same time, I think a big important part of childhood that we see biblically, that we see kind of played out through history, is that kids at a young age start participating in the purpose of their community as early as they possibly can. So I think it's not so much that our kids need less. I think they need more in some ways. And I'm not talking about like busyness or anything like that. But I think they need to know like, hey, what you do at school matters to what God is doing in the world.
That's good.
What you do at home matters to what God is doing in the world and what matters in our family. And I think even that quick change of instilling what they're doing with that purpose just changes the game for kids.
When we planted a church in downtown Las Vegas, and there was a pretty good contingency of homeless people that would actually come to our church. And my kid at the time, it was like from when he was like 4 to 7, like he was a part of this community where he was interacting on a regular weekly basis with this homeless community. The more part is what made me think of this. He was exposed to more different kinds of people. And so he's always been really good at interacting with adults and different kinds of people. He's always been able to love many different kinds of people because we were trying to expose him to more.
And I think that's exactly kind of what our kids need. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what do we do about this? How do we live this out? The good thing is I actually think this is one of the easier changes that we as parents can do in our kids. And what I have found is that big purpose starts with small changes in our lives, is recognizing kind of what are little moments that you can kind of instill the significance of what they're doing. And even by just calling it out and recognizing in them. Okay. That makes it a bigger thing. So if they want to, for example, like if we want them to understand, hey, this is you're part of the big picture of what God is doing. You're part of this bigger purpose. That's a big thing for a kid to grasp. So start with a little thing like, hey, you're a big part of us having a successful day today.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Like start small.
You can help us.
Yeah. You can help us.
Or you can completely wreck us.
You can also completely destroy this day. You have the power to do both.
Yes. It's funny how they actually do have the power to do both.
Yeah. No, they really do. If we're packing up to go to the coast, which packing up start days in advance, give them jobs of consequence. Give them jobs where, like, if they don't do their job, it's going to affect the rest of the group.
Right.
And we need them to do that job. I love outsourcing at home. Like you're a
delegator?
Crazy delegator.
Okay.
Like it's saying like, hey, what you're doing right now matters to the bigger picture of what we're doing.
And even like so my wife, the way she gives and receives love is acts of service. And so when I invite my son into helping with chores and tasks, I invite him into it. I'm like, hey man, this is actually how we're going to love mom right now. Is we're going to do this so she could go rest, kind of do what she wants to do. And so I'm trying to even draw out some of that stuff in him. Like, hey, this is a big picture and you're actually showing mom a lot of love right now. And she's receiving that as love. So let's love her in this way.
Yeah. And I mean, and the other thing, is even expanding that out is when we do have opportunities to participate in something, like I remember I was a part of working with a large migrant community that had come through when I was living in Arizona that needed housing, shelter, food, stuff like that. It would have been probably easier for me to show up on my own and help. I could have probably given more of myself to that task, but I brought along 2 of my kids that were old enough at the time to do it, and they were probably younger than maybe was helpful, but they were a part of things. And I remember like us being a part of that, them playing soccer with some of the other kids that were there. I remember this was thrown together very last minute, so there was not really food thought through for all of these families that were there. And so I remember we got in the car, we're like, let's go to the grocery store. They helped me pick out stuff at the grocery store. We started just making quesadillas because that's pretty much the only thing I know how to make. We just became a quesadilla factory.
Man, a good quesadilla, it's hard to beat.
And they're very easy to make. But like my kids will still talk about that. That happened probably 6 or 7 years ago. My kids will still talk about that.
That's so meaningful.
And they'll connect the dots between, hey, what they did then mattered to what God was doing in the big picture. And I think that that is something kids need to thrive. If we're going back to the big idea, kids need to know their purpose to truly thrive. They need to know that what they're doing now matters to what God is doing in the bigger picture of life. And we as parents get the, I think, delightful opportunity to tell our kids how they can be a part of that, to invite them into that, and watch them thrive. And it's almost like we get to enjoy what happens to our kids when they find that purpose. And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Next week on Blueprints.
Old internet noise.
Hey, this is Greg from Pasadena, California. Blueprints is a production of Grace-Based Families, a nonprofit that equips ordinary parents to raise extraordinary kids. Grace-Based Families make free resources for parents thanks to the generosity of listeners like you. To join in the work of transforming generations of families, go to gracebasedfamilies.com/join.